recognize.
Madam Chair, I'm going to give one question to the faculty, student representative so that they can have 2 questions if that's okay.
We will ensure that every trustee has an opportunity to ask 1 question, and time permitting, trustees will be able to ask.
So I want to give my 1 question to them.
That's fine.
Okay.
We'll have the second question from the trustee representative.
Thank you.
Trustee Brown, you're recognized.
Good morning, Dr. Allen, and thank you so much for interviewing here with us. My name is Dr. Jamal Brown. I'm the Faculty Senate President and University Trustee. The context of one of my questions comes from a list of strategic priorities that was put together from faculty and staff across the university. One of our strategic priorities is planning for R1 faculty, staff, and student readiness. So we instituted a survey and a feedback system, and we got about 450 registrants that we could survey questions to. So one of our survey questions was the university's infrastructure, staff, faculty, graduate student structure, resources, compensation, training, or facilities are ready to obtain and maintain R1 status. On the survey, the majority of the faculty either strongly disagreed or disagreed with the statement. My question to you is, what would be your plan to assess the needs of faculty, and how would you evaluate our needs for some of the more focused tracks that you spoke of, and also a more aligned credit hour load similar to SUS faculty across the enterprise?
Dr. Brown, thank you for your question. And this is important again, because it was part of my vision that we would move into the R1 Carnegie status within 5 years. My concern not so much is with research expenditure. I think the $50 million is something that is doable from what I've seen. My concern comes with having 70 doctoral graduates every year, which, looking at IPED's data, we may be at 35, 40. And then looking at the programs that are actually in place to be able to do that. So when you talk about that survey, first thing that comes to mind is just one, our Office of Sponsored Programs. Do we have the correct infrastructure in place to make sure that we have people needed for the pre-award, the post-award, they can assist with writing the grants, doing the budget, but more importantly, making sure that faculty can focus on doing the research. They will write, but there's some things that they may be engaged in that grant process that maybe they don't have to do. And I'd like to make sure that we take a look at that. But also our graduate students, what is the time to candidacy? What is the time to dissertation defense? Where are we getting hung up? I don't know how many students are actually starting the programs, but what is the average time to move them from beginning to end? And making sure that they have the resources they need. So if it's a writing issue, do we have a writing center that would help them to write so they can defend their dissertation sooner than later? But also making sure that faculty have what they need to do the research. And that's why I mentioned that specific giving faculty the flexibility to be able to be research focused only. So reducing their commitment in teaching, reducing their commitment in service so that they can focus solely on research. So their evaluation will look different from someone who may be evenly distributed across teaching, service, and scholarship. But also making sure that we have the support for our students. So realizing that we're in a climate where funding is being reduced. So do we have alternative funding for students who will be one of our graduates to continue in the program? And I think that's key, because a lot of our students could be tied to a grant that just got cut. So how do we continue to support them?
Thank you so much for your answer.
Thank you. Are there additional questions? I'll ask a question. Can you describe a situation where you faced an ethical dilemma or a crisis in your leadership role? How did you handle it? What did you do? And what did you learn from the experience?
Thank you for your question. You give me all the hard ones. So crisis, I'll give you two. It's always difficult, and maybe not so much a crisis, but when you have to discipline faculty and staff. And so realizing that I've been in a situation where we've had faculty who brought harm to students, didn't have student outcomes at the forefront of what they should be focusing on. They didn't do well with their colleagues as faculty. And so we had to let them go. And it's a crisis for me in a sense that I know that that person has a family. They have to take care of themselves. But I think what's most important to me is student success. And so not being afraid to make a tough decision, but it's always difficult when you have to do something like that. But crisis for me, again, when I was an administrator at Xavier University, it was a crisis when something we couldn't control, a thing called Hurricane Katrina came and devastated New Orleans. And so at that time, we had over 120 students who were in their last year of rotations, and they had to be rescheduled. And so literally, they completed their first two rotations, and they had 8 more to complete. And so I was thankful to be able to work with my colleagues across the nation, across the academy, to be able to find rotation sites for our students, anywhere from California all the way to New Jersey. And so that was tough because President Francis said he wanted all those students to graduate on time, which would have been spring of 2006. And fortunately, they did. But what that taught me was that I'm willing to do whatever it takes to make sure it happens for our students. I go back to my experience with Dr. Arcelia Johnson Fannin and just thinking about my passion for student success. They didn't cause the hurricane. There was really no need for them to be off track. And so if there was anything that I could do to make sure that they all graduated on time, I wanted to do it. And so it taught me to persevere and to make sure that I realized that it's always bigger than me.
Thank you. Trustee Lawson, you're recognized.
All right, good morning. Excuse me. Welcome, Dr. Allen, to the campus and to these interviews. I just have one question. Building a leadership team is really important in these roles, and these state universities have really become large businesses. So just my one question is, what's your, let's say, philosophy on building a strong leadership team? And then also, once you build that team, really driving accountability?
Thank you for your question. When I think about building a leadership team, one, I look for people who are competent. So one, they can do the job that I'm hiring for, but also making sure that they are loyal to the mission. I can give you an example. When I was dean of the School of Pharmacy and Health Professions, we would hire faculty. They would, of course, interview with me as the dean. And I would share with them early on, our students have different needs, and they may not be used to dealing with students that we have. We have students who may be homeless. They can't help that. We have students who may be, for whatever reason, they may be challenged, they may be wards of the state. They can't help that, but they're here and they want to learn. And so I just want to make sure that they're loyal to the mission, and that just like me, who will do whatever it takes to make sure that they're successful, I want to make sure that they are the same and that they would do the same as well. In terms of accountability, always making sure that one, faculty, staff, more importantly, my direct reports have what they need to do the job. It's hard to hold someone accountable when they don't have what they need to do the job. So making sure that they have all the resources they need, they have the time and the space. And I'm always big on making sure that we can agree on the deadline, that we can agree on when we believe this project should be complete. And then if it's not, checking in, but if for whatever reason it's not, then making sure that they are held accountable. Again, not afraid to make the hard decisions, not afraid to use progressive discipline, because I do realize at institutions like this, accountability is key. And sometimes when you don't hold people accountable, not sometimes, there are issues that could have been prevented.
Thank you. Trustee Bryant, you're recognized. And welcome to your first Board of Trustees meeting.
Thank you so much. I enjoyed your presentation. My question for you is, earlier in your presentation, you mentioned how you wanted FAMU to be the #1 HBCU ranked publicly and privately. What aspects of private institutions do you believe attribute to their success in high ranking? And how do you imagine embedding those aspects without losing the accessibility and culture that FAMU has to potential students?
No, thank you so much for your question. I don't know what they may have in terms of, because the US and News World Report rankings, they're interesting. So while I may sit and say, well, you know what, they should be #1, and they should beat out Spelman, or they should beat out Xavier or Morehouse, but they didn't. But I do think what's important that FAMU would need to work on is the retention rate, because that is a metric for US and News World Report. So the retention rate and the on-time graduation rate. So I think improving those would be helpful in moving forward.
Thank you. Trustee Reed, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chair Harper, and thank you, Dr. Allen, for attending today's session. My question is, it's so important in our community, which you're so well aware of, to really be able to engage and build relationships with local community alumni. You see the university playing in the broader community, and how would you facilitate building those relationships and managing them accordingly?
Thank you so much for your question. One of the things that I would do, if given the position in my first 90 days, is go and do a listen, learn, and lead tour. I really would want to engage the community to find out, how do we be of service? How can we partner? What are some of the things that we could improve upon? And how do we just make Tallahassee better? But not just Tallahassee, but just our broader community. Because again, I believe the community should be better because FAMU is here. So having those conversations, maybe doing that in a town hall format, having some one-on-ones, but just making sure that we're listening to those voices, making sure that they're heard, and then bringing that information back to the team. So making sure that the cabinet is aware of what's being said, making sure that our faculty, our staff, and our students are engaged, being transparent, allowing them to see that we do have a civic responsibility to make this community better, and then sitting down and strategically focusing on how do we do that.
Thank you. Are there any trustees who have not already asked a question who would like to ask a question at this time? Okay. Seeing none, Trustee Brown, you're recognized.
Hello again, Dr. Allen. You mentioned that you believe it's fair for people to have what they need to do their job. According to the National Education Association's Higher Education Report, FAMU's faculty ranked 10th in the state for assistant professors, 10th in the state for associate professors, and 7th in the state for full professors, based on data submitted by each state's Department of Education. Our compensation study was recently completed, but lacked broad involvement from the faculty and staff, left out most SUS peers, did not include schools with equal professional programs, and left out K through 12 faculty and staff from FAMU-DRS. My question to you is, do you believe that FAMU's faculty and staff salaries should be benchmarked to the SUS peers of whom we are held accountable, as well as FAMU-DRS with their county peers?
Actually, I do. I can tell you that, so one, let me take a step back. And thank you for that question. And it resonates with me because as a dean, we went through this with Siegel and our salary survey, and just making sure that when you're doing the comparison, that there's some agreement to making sure that if you're going to try to make sure that those salaries are benchmarked by the 70th percentile, then who is that with? For example, health professions, we have salary surveys that are done by our national organizations, and they do it every year and they come out. Are those being considered? So to answer your question, one, there should be feedback from the faculty and staff to make sure that the comparison is fair. Definitely should consider different specialty programs and their salary surveys to make sure that it's fair, but also just making sure that faculty's voices are heard throughout the process. So that process should be transparent. So upfront, the entire campus should know this is how it's going to be done. As they're making progress, faculty and the deans, the chairs are being engaged as they move forward. And then towards the end, the results are actually shared with some of the leaders to make sure that it's right before it's presented, so that once it is shared, everyone is in the loop and they've been transparent.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Trustee Washington, you're recognized.
Sorry, apologies. You mentioned a couple of challenges around higher education funding, particularly due to changes at the federal level. So obviously FAMU is a public university and pretty heavily dependent on securing state funding. Can you describe some of your experience in securing external resources, specifically legislative appropriations, but also from private or corporate fundraising and grants?
No, thank you for your questions. And you're right. This is a time where we definitely need to be focused on how we look at alternative resources for funding. So my experience as a dean when I got to University of Maryland Eastern Shore was making sure that we had a building. So our accrediting body said that you were established in 2010, it's 2015, and you should have had a building. So our accreditation was in jeopardy. So that was one of the first thing that was on my plate. So I worked with our Eastern Shore delegation, which includes our state senators as well as our state delegates, and also a consulting firm and the faculty. And we were able to secure $90 million from the state. Again, this was a time where we were being pushed up from some of our peers who are already a part of the governor's capital improvement plan, but there was a need, and we made sure that our voices were heard, and we communicated that need adequately. And so 7 years later, we have the building, and they moved in. But also, our federal senators and representatives, they do what they call congressionally directed spending, and also they have community funding projects that they will fund. And under my leadership, the faculty have done a great job in securing millions of dollars, particularly $2 million for our vet program, which we just received state approval. It's pending accreditation approval from the AVMA COE, the accrediting body for veterinary medicine. But that was huge for us. They also received $500,000 for us to partner with Tidal Health, which is a regional hospital. So this goes to, again, making our community better because we're here. And so using drone technology to deliver medicines over to Smith Island, which is a remote island that you can only get there by airplane or boat. So making sure that we're meeting that community need. My experience does not lie with any private donors, but before we hired our dean, I was somewhat the face, so to speak, for our, the veterinary medicine program. So quickly establishing a relationship with the Maryland Horse Breeders Association to make sure that we would be sustainable as we brought on our program. And so horse breeders play a significant role in the state of Maryland. Of course, you know, we host the Preakness. And so making sure as we're bringing on a veterinary medicine program that we have those ties with the community in the state. And of course, we realize that would secure some funding as well.
Thank you. Trustee Bryant, you're recognized.
You seem to be very charismatic about the students and student body. Have you ever imagined what your interaction would be like with the student body and student government association? And if so, what is one initiative or one action that you feel as though you would be able to partake in if ever so fortunate to have the position?
Thank you so much for your question. So to start, I have my orange and green Chucks in my car with FAMU and Rattlers on them. We have Dress Down Friday at UMES. So the students know I wear jeans, I wear my maroon and silver Chucks because I want them to know I'm here for them. I've worn their shoes before. But I also want to hear their voices. We worked with the American Association of State Colleges and Universities on a project where we wanted to make sure that our voices, student voices, are heard. One of the things that I found was that we listen, but sometimes we don't close the loop like we should. And so wanted to make sure that at the SGA town halls, and even if we have the more frequent town halls, making sure that if something is asked of the cabinet or other leadership, that we do follow up. It may not be what they want to hear, but at least we follow up and close the loop. So I would be very visible. I want to be at all the games. When we're out here, like I've been on Friday on the set, if the Omegas are stepping, if y'all okay, I will step with them. I still haven't. But again, definitely want to be a part of the students.
Thank you.
So we're facing a time of significant change and headwinds from many different directions. Can you provide an example of a time when your organization underwent significant change? How'd you lead your team through the transition, and how did you address any resistance?
Thank you so much for your question. I would say the pandemic brought about change, I think, for all of us. And it definitely was a quick pivot, particularly when you are a dean for a health professions program where we do a lot of things in person. And so we quickly had to realize that the things that we could do online, we would have to, and then have to move in to bring students on campus and do some of those other things. And that was a challenge because we had never done that before. We were so used to being able to do things the way we wanted to do them and how we wanted to do them. One of the things that I discovered was that not all students are tech savvy. Not all faculty, including myself, are tech savvy. And so one of the things we did was faculty felt more comfortable. They didn't feel comfortable at home teaching. So during the pandemic, we allowed them to come on campus and deliver their lecture as if they were in the classroom, and they appreciated that. We purchased hotspots because we had students who would drive up to campus and sit in our parking lot just to get online. So we found that we needed to do whatever we could to make sure that, one, we were meeting our students' needs, but also realizing that we had a significant number of students who were in what we call that sandwich generation. They're taking care of their children, their parents, or maybe other siblings. So one of the things I did was I just started a Google Sheet, and I listened to the students. I allowed them to put on there any concern they had, and we addressed it in real time, me and my executive team. So my associate dean for student affairs, my assessment dean, my experiential education dean, they all went in and we updated that spreadsheet on a regular basis to make sure that you had a question, we answered it. And so I just wanted to make sure that, we were transparent because it was a different time for all of us. A lot of uncertainty, but I wanted to make sure that they knew that we're different. You're at an HBCU, and as I promised to your mother and your father, I'm gonna take care of you.
Thank you. Trustee Brown, you're recognized.
Hello again. One of the strategic priorities from faculty and staff is fostering innovation, industry partnerships, and research commercialization. We had the thought of promoting faculty-led research and innovation through strategic partnerships with industry, with an emphasis on intellectual property protection, self-sustaining initiatives, commercialization, and diversified revenue generation. What are your thoughts on these goals on how we can promote research and innovation with the faculty at FAMU and the staff?
Thank you so much for your question. I can't even, I'm so excited that you said what you said. So the answer is automatically yes. I would hope that we would look at patents. I know that faculty across many different disciplines here at FAMU are doing some great work. I would like to see us start our own business. Again, I just think there's a lot that we could be doing in terms of research and innovation. I like to see how we've had our computer science and technology team who are actually working with the Center for Health Disparities using AI in healthcare. That's amazing. I'm so glad that we're doing it. I think there's a definite opportunity for us to work with the pharmaceutical industry. We have a lot of breadth of experience. There are projects that they may not want to do that we could take on and be paid for those services. Again, we have a lot of experience in R&D here on campus. So I would be excited to pull up my sleeves. I don't have the expertise in pharmaceutical sciences, but what I do know, I would stand behind the faculty and support them.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Are there any additional questions from trustees at this time? Okay. None. You are now welcome to make a closing statement if you so choose, Dr. Allen.
Sure. Well, again, thank you so much just for allowing me to be able to be a finalist, to be here to participate on this on-campus interview. It means a lot. FAMU molded and shaped me. The values that I have today are because of my experience here at FAMU. I want to be a part of the innovation. I want to be a part of all these great things that are happening right now and that will continue to happen as we move forward. And so it would just be a privilege for me to be able to come back and give to this institution that has given so much to me, and would love to be the next president.
Thank you so much. So at this time, I will ask the team to provide a video, please.
Greetings, Rattlers. I am Dr. Timothy Beard, and I proudly serve as the current and 10th interim president of Florida Agriculture Mechanical University. I'm also president emeritus of Pasco Hernando State College, where I served for 17 years. In the 137 plus year history of this great institution, FAMU has had 22 presidents, 12 permanent presidents, and 10 interim presidents. To be one of only 22 individuals to lead FAMU in such an important role has indeed been the highlight of my career. With nearly 90,000 alumni in the rich history of America's #1 HBCU, this is an experience my wife, First Lady Wendy Beard, and I will forever cherish. Please allow me to say thank you to the following for allowing me and Lady Beard to serve you. Thanks to the FAMU student body, faculty, staff, and administrators. Thank you to the FAMU Board of Trustees and Chair Hopper, Chair Brian Lamb, and the Florida Board of Governors. And last but certainly not least, the family and Rattler Nation. Very soon, the FAMU Board of Trustees and Board of Governors are scheduled to select the institution's 13th president. This week, my leadership team and I will welcome the presidential candidates and community stakeholders to campus. It is our expectation that a healthy civil dialogue would take place between the candidates and the Board of Trustees, our internal and external stakeholders over the next few days. As interim president of FAMU, I and my administrative team are indeed committed to ensuring a smooth and successful transition occurs when the 13th president is selected. We're also committed to doing whatever is necessary to ensure the continuous rise of FAMU as a high-ranking, high-research university in America. It is my prayer, and I hope that our entire family would join us in these endeavors. Thank you for your engagement, your commitment, and most importantly, thank you for your support of the next leader of this great institution. FAMU today, FAMU tomorrow, FAMU forever.
Thank you to President Beard for that video. And thanks to everyone for your engagement today. And thank you again, Dr. Allen, for being with us. As you know, there's a full day of activities to meet with various constituencies. For those in the audience and online, that schedule can be found at the Presidential Search website. We also have a feedback form that we invite the community to complete for any finalists, should you choose. In addition, the Board of Trustees will meet on Friday, May 16th at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time to take up action items, including deliberations and voting on the president-elect. Thank you again and have a wonderful day. The meeting is now adjourned.